Okay, let's just dive right in. For the better part of a decade, Stranger Things was so much more than a show we just watched. It was this giant mystery we were all trying to solve together. And as that final season got closer, wow, the internet just exploded with fan theories, basically creating a whole alternate ending. So today, we're going to put those fan theories head to head with the ending we actually got from the Duffer Brothers.
And man, this quote from a fan on Reddit, it just nails it. It perfectly captures the whole vibe. The audience, we didn't just see ourselves as viewers. We saw ourselves as players. Players in one last epic Dungeons & Dragons campaign, helping write the story of Hawkins right alongside the creators.
So that's the big question here, right? With the Duffer Brothers as the ultimate dungeon masters and literally millions of us as the players, how well did we actually predict the final moves of the game? Let's roll the dice and find out.
And you gotta understand, this is a huge part of modern fandom. It's not a passive thing anymore. We're talking about forums, social media, super detailed video essays. Fans became co-creators, building these incredible, elaborate worlds of what could happen that, honestly, sometimes felt just as real as the show itself.
Okay, so first up, the big bad. Fans were absolutely convinced that after 4 seasons, there just had to be one last final twist when it came to the ultimate villain of the whole story.
And wow, the theories got wild. Some people were certain the Mind Flayer was secretly pulling Vecna's strings the whole time. An even crazier one suggested Dr. Brenner was actually an older Vecna, trapped in some kind of time loop. But the most popular one, by far, it was the epic return of Eddie Munson, resurrected as the D&D character Kaz the Vampire, to get his final revenge.
So you have fans expecting this massive, lore-heavy comeback for Eddie as a vampire hero. But what did the show actually give us? A single metaphorical line. Eleven's sister, Kale, just calls a villain a vampire for taking her blood. It was a tiny little nod, not the world-shattering resurrection everyone was geared up for.
So, as it turns out, the finale didn't introduce a bigger, badder monster. Instead, it did something kind of different. It dug deeper into the monster they already had, making Henry Creel feel more tragically human. And the big twist wasn't a new boss. It was a new motive. Turns out the Mind Flayer was never Vecna's little puppet. It was loyal only to itself, which created this chaotic and totally unpredictable three-way fight in the end.
All right, so let's shift gears and talk about the heroes. Because if the fans got the villain wrong, maybe they were closer when it came to the fates of core characters like Will and Eleven.
I mean, there was a mountain of evidence for the theory that Will Byers wasn't just a victim. He was the secret architect of the Upside Down. Fans pointed to everything. The dimension being frozen on the exact day he vanished. The fact he drew the Mind Flayer before anyone even knew what it was. And come on, his D&D character was a world-shaping magician called Will the Wise. It was a really, really compelling case.
But the show went a different way. Will's role was absolutely vital, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't the creator. His deep, traumatic connection to Vecna and the Upside Down made him the key, the one person who could help Eleven navigate that final fight from the inside. He was the link, not the source. And that was a choice that really prioritized his emotional journey over a big lore twist.
And you don't just have to take my word for it. This quote says it all. Even though that huge fan theory was totally debunked, the actor himself, Noah Schnapp, felt the official ending was the absolute right one for his character, giving him this powerful resolution after years of being the victim.
All right, let's talk about Elle. The general feeling among fans was that her story just had to end in tragedy. The two leading theories were all about the ultimate sacrifice. Either she'd have to permanently lose her powers to close the gates for good, or, even more heartbreakingly, she'd erase everyone's memory of everything, including herself, just to protect them.
But instead, the finale gave Eleven a true hero's conclusion. It didn't take away her powers, and it didn't take away her relationships. It really honored her entire journey, from being a numbered experiment to becoming a young woman who was finally in control of her own life. It seems like the creators felt the most powerful ending wasn't some tragic sacrifice, but just seeing her finally get the life she chose for herself.
So this brings us to the biggest, the meta question of them all. Forget the characters for a second. What about the story itself? How do you even end a show built on so much mystery and nostalgia?
Ah, yes, you knew this one was coming. This was the oldest, most debated theory out there. The idea that in the very last scene, the camera would pull back and reveal the entire series was just an elaborate Dungeons & Dragons campaign the boys were playing in Mike's basement. It's a bit of a cliche, sure, but it was a theory that just never fully went away.
But the Dungeon Masters themselves put that one to rest. In interviews, the Duffer Brothers made it crystal clear they had a real, definitive ending planned for years. Their story wasn't just a game, it was an emotional journey with a real destination.
And that is exactly what we got. The finale gave us this intense, high-stakes battle where things felt real. Key characters made heroic sacrifices, and it all ended not with some clever meta-reveal, but with a quiet, emotional, character-driven final scene that brought the whole story full circle.
So, with the game board cleared and the creator's story finally told, how did it all land with the players? The very fans who had spent years writing their own versions.
Well, to put it lightly, the reaction was complicated. In fact, the final episodes left so many fans unsatisfied that it immediately started drawing comparisons to another famously controversial TV finale, Game of Thrones. Yeah, they went there.
And look, the numbers don't lie. You can see the split clear as day right here. While the critics gave the final season a pretty solid 84%, the audience score just plummeted to 56%. That's a massive 33% drop from the season before, which shows a serious disconnect with a huge chunk of the fan base.
So, what was the problem? What were people actually saying? Well, a few key things kept coming up. Way too much screen time for minor characters, Vecna somehow losing his scare factor, really important moments like Will's coming out feeling rushed, and a general sense that the core group dynamic, the thing we all fell in love with, just felt off.
You know, all of this points to a much bigger question about storytelling today. Fans, we often crave these intricate lore-based puzzles and shocking twists, kind of like all the theories we just talked about. But creators, they're often trying to do something else. Deliver an emotional resolution for the characters they've spent years with. The real magic of fan culture is that both of these stories can actually exist at the same time.
And it leaves us with this one last thought to chew on. Maybe the true upside down of modern entertainment isn't a place with monsters. Maybe it's this strange, inverted space between the story we all write together as fans and the one the creators ultimately tell us. It's a fascinating gap to think about, isn't it?